Now, if you have a lot of motorcycles and or you ride a lot, what happens is you have to change a lot of tires. And I'm trying to put all the basic information of tire changing. Now, this tire, of course, it's a 190. It's ready to be changed. We're into the bars. Once these little bars are flat with the tire, it's really a good idea to change it no matter what the rest is, because this is the part of the tire you ride on most of the time. And when we take this tire off, this section of the tire, if I take a sheetrock knife and cut this out, that's very, very thin. Now, over the years I've shown many ways on, we got about 1,200 videos on our channel now, and I've shown many different ways using a heat box, using tools, using the duct tape method, but nothing makes the tire change easier than doing a tire change on a warm day, and you'll see why very quickly. Anytime the weather's hot and you can leave the tire out in the sun and let it raise in temperature, in the winter I have to use a heat box or some other method of leaving it by a heating vent. But in the summer, it's very easy if the tire is warm. So luckily for us, we order tires in multiples, and usually we wait till they're on sale. In this case, we got a bunch of tires all at once at a very good price. Now, whenever you buy tires, if you're buying them from a dealer, you always want to look for the date code. The first two numbers are the week. This is the 4th week in the year of 2018, so this is a relatively new tire. If this were a year or 2 years old, I might want to shop around and get it from somebody else. Now, I've always had really good luck with Michelin tires, both on my car and motorcycles. Anytime I can, I try to use Michelin tires. Now, before I change a tire, I always look at, and believe me, that is thinner than you think it is. And then look how much rubber you have on a new tire. And nothing there, in my opinion, nothing improves the handling of a bike like a fresh set of tires. These tires, what happened, no matter what you do, they're still very thin here, and the bike tends to get unstable under certain conditions. A new tire, the bike always feels like it's on rails. So the first thing to do, if it's a hot summer day, right now it's about 95 degrees, just put the tire out in the sun about every 5 minutes, 10 minutes in the beginning, flip it over so it heats equally. Once that tire gets warm, it's going to be very easy to mount. If it's cold or it's a winter day or it's inside your house, it's going to be a little more difficult. Now, the whole reason I make these videos to show what I've learned over the years is because almost all of my bikes, I've put a lot of time into making the wheels customized, painted, whatever they are, powder coated, it doesn't matter. But I don't like to have the wheels all scratched up. It really aggravates me. Some of the bikes, even the spare wheels I have, I put a lot of time into painting and making them as nice as possible. So taking a tire iron and taking a big gouge out of that would make me sick. Now, I understand you bring a bike to the dealer and it's great, they have a tire machine. Sometimes they do a nice job, sometimes they don't. And if you're not, there's one way to ensure they don't scratch it, is do it yourself. And it's really not that difficult. Now, the method I'm going to show takes a little more time, a little more energy than just taking it off and bringing it to a dealer. But the advantage is if you scratch it, you'll be the one that scratches it, not somebody else who will say, who cares, you got a little scratch there, they all scratch. I'm sure you've heard that before. Now, here's the truth. I don't want anybody scratching my bike. That's where I learned to do things myself. Now, doing a tube tire, certain tires are very difficult to do. The RD ones, because they have tubes, and we've made separate videos about that. But doing a sport bike tire, there's a couple of general rules. The wider the rim is, a wide rim tire is a lot easier to change than a narrow rim tire. The reason is the geometry of mounting the tire over it and getting it to go into the valley in the middle of the wheel. It just is easier on a wider rim. A narrow tire is always a little more effort. And I've also found that some brands of tire, and I will not mention any names, some brands of tire are way more difficult to mount than others. Michelin's, I think, are on the easy side of that scale. I've never had trouble mounting Michelin tires. So this is just another little trick. If you're already on my channel, Windy Space U, you can look up and just define the search as tire changing, and you'll see there's an awful lot of videos of changing, because almost every time I learn something new, I try to post it on YouTube as a way of sharing information. But today we want to mount that tire to that bike. The job usually takes between an hour and 2 hours, depending on how much cleanup there is to do. Now, I like to clean all the parts and polish them, and I'm not in any rush, because today it's way too hot to ride right now. Now, most modern sport bikes with wide rims, usually they're made in such a way it's pretty easy to get the back wheel on and off. I always put the bike up on a stand anytime I can, just makes it more stable and easier to take it apart. Every bike's a little bit different, but an R1, reasonably easy to get that back rim off. And in my log book for this collection of bikes, I always log in how long the tires last, which ones seem to last the best. But like I said, the Michelins have always been my first choice. Now, since every bike that I work on is just a little bit different, I always line up the tool, everything that goes on this side of the bike on this side, everything on the other side, because a lot of bikes have shims and different things that aren't exactly symmetrical. Now, what's always important too is this bike has 28,000, almost 28,000 on it, and I want to look at the brake pads, and they look like they're fine. So we don't need to worry about replacing them. We'll clean them with brake part cleaner, wipe them nice and clean, as well as the rotor. But it just makes it easier to do this part of the job, just a little bit easier. So now, one part of the job that you usually wouldn't get done at a dealer, if you took this to a dealer, is they wouldn't do a thorough job of cleaning this wheel before we even work on it. I want that clean. I'll pull the sprocket and the rubber, the biscuits out, and while I have the support, I'll clean up in there as much as possible. Again, the R1's relatively easy to do this too, because I guess it's made that you can do this at the track, but relatively easy. But still, I like everything clean before I put it back together. And if Simple Green doesn't clean it, we can put a little kerosene in there, a little diesel fuel. But usually, because I keep it clean every time I do a tire change, it never really gets terrible. And Simple Green does a great job of degreasing things. Now, another funny thing, a good tip, because a lot of people, and again, it's 95 degrees, it's really way too hot for me to go riding. You would cook out there. I found this at a garage sale for a couple of dollars, and then I went to Lowe's one day at the end of the season and got this big ceiling fan for 20 bucks on sale. It has no lights or anything. But between those two things, I can work out in the garage really without any air conditioning in 95-degree temperature. Now, I custom made from scratch that hugger, the exhaust system, this piece, the heel guards. None of those things are commercial. So while I have the bike apart, I always look to see that they're in good shape. There's no cracks, nothing's getting loose. Everything looks like it's in pretty good shape. But again, it never hurts to check. Now, what I like to use is just ordinary diesel fuel. Spray some on there while I'm doing other cleanup things. I'll get both sides done, of course. Get that wiped down, and before we go on to the rim. Now, this is a Sprox. This one's got a little over 22,000 miles on it. Shows me no signs of wear, nothing asymmetrical on the teeth wear. And I was so happy with this that eventually I wound up putting them on. I think all the bikes have them now, except for the RD. No, the GS doesn't have one yet. I don't think they had one when I was looking to buy one. They didn't have one in stock. But anyway, these are really, I like to always promote something that I find works well. These really work well. They're steel on the outside, aluminum on the inside, and they last forever. This one's gone through 2 separate chains already. So after cleaning the rim, next step is to take the tire valve, the middle part out, the seal, let the air out of the tire, and then break the bead of the wheel. Now, another good tip that's worth, you don't want to scratch your rims, just have a double or triple layer of towel. These are old towels, old shop towels, and just as you're breaking the bead, it protects the rim. Another good little tip, I keep all my tools that I use for changing tires, all the little things, and these little valve parts, tire irons, rim protectors, whatever, all in one nice little convenient place. So a couple other little tips that I found useful. Of course, having the towel to protect the rim. Otherwise, you're just putting rough metal on this and then putting force. It's difficult when you have a 190 tire. It just about fits under there. But what I use is a fork tube. An extension gives me a little more leverage. Makes popping that tire off a lot easier. Now, using a rim protectors, the next step for me is I pop one side of the bead. So right now I'm on the inside of the tire. I need to be able to get one side of the tire free. Now it's the time of the day that we have to go get our grandson, so we're going to put this aside, relax a little bit. It'll be cooler tomorrow, or just let the tire cook out in the sun. I'm not sure how long he's going to be here, but it'll give us a good time to take a break. We got the hard part done. So I'm not taking a picture of you anyway. So here's a choice. We could play with these mega blocks, or you could help me change that tire. Don't you want to go and change that tire?
No.
No! Am I supposed to do ride on ball tires?
Yes.
Yes! Well, that won't be any fun.
Yes, it will.
Yeah, it'd be fun for you.
Yes.
What happens if I go over the cliff with?
Yes.
Yes! And I'm only my underwear, right? Yeah, that's funny to you, not for me. Over the cliff with. You're supposed to be helping me change that tire, baby.
I'm not paying attention.
Oh my goodness. Your moment of truth. You built this up. Now watch, Vlad. We'll look at this up. Watch.
I built it.
Go ahead. Track day. Let's have a track day with the mega blocks. Go ahead. Show 'em. Oh! Now how about the big one? Track day. Oh! You see what I got? And you thought you got a repair job on your hands. Ay, 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 ay.
So now you got to build it again.
Build them up, Buttercup. So just to show, this is not a tire changing, this is a tire changing video, but we got to fix this seat. Vlad had a little track day mishap, a low side, I do believe. I got to reinforce the fairing. I'm going to try to get him ready for the next weekend. It's kind of an emergency thing, but we'll make a separate video of this. But tomorrow we got to finish changing that tire. But or we have to wind up in a mental institution here. Anyway, we're having a lot of fun today. If you love Legos and you love magnet tiles and you love fixing Suzuki's,
Who are you sending this to?
I'm going to send it to everybody on the planet because you didn't help me change that tire today. Alright, it's early morning today. We're still in the shadows here. I want to get the tire out in the sun. Let it sit for at least a half an hour or so while I have my coffee, and we'll get ready with our workbench here, and I'll show you how I cut that tire off. The two tools that I have are an ordinary cut-off wheel. These are the composite blades, and the same thing in this is really a roto zip, but the Dremel tool is exactly the same. Roto zip, this is just like a Fordham tool, just a little bit flexible shaft, a little bit more powerful. They both do the job. But the key thing is, now we have the tire up like this. So I have this block of nylon, a block of 2x4, anything to protect the rim, and a rim protector, of course. Because the objective of doing all this is a pretty simple thing. I just don't want to scratch the rim, if at all possible. Now, some people don't care, and that's fine. Some people prefer to have a dealer just run a tire machine, and that's fine too. But I'm fussy. Now you could even cut. I've cut the whole thing with the Dremel tool. You can see there's steel in almost every tire I've ever cut. Some are radial, have steel stuff here, steel belts or wires, but there always is the steel around the bead that you have to cut, and that's the part where normally once that's cut, the rest of the tire we can cut very easily, and then I have to do the same thing to the other side. A couple of tips when you do it this way. I know it sounds like it really looks and sounds and smells like a butchery job, but as opposed to the day you take a chunk out of your powder coated rim or your polished rim, you put a big scratch in it. This to me is always the devil I know, and I've done this for many, many years. By the way, on our videos, 1,200 videos out there now, a little more than 1,200. There's probably 10 or 15, including the ones with Glenn and with other people, of installing tires the way I'm going to show. Looks messy, but it works every time. The whole key here to make this easy is get this part of the tire down in there, and again, that's why wide rims are easier. Now, I put a rim protector, of course. 2 tire irons leave just enough space that I can make my cut, because once I cut through that, cutting through the rest of this rubber is going to be a piece of cake. And again, I always say this, the disc holds these 2 irons in place. I've done enough of these that I've found, I think, as many shortcuts as there are. Now, years ago, or maybe still, I think Pirellis still come with a dot where the heavy part of the tire is. Michelin's don't. In the past, I always did this. My friend Rich Peabody gave me some good information. Since he dealt with this his whole life, he owned a dealership, whatever he did. Maybe he was in a mafia, I don't know. There's always a joint in the belt. If you run your hand around, you don't even have to look for it. Right here is the joint in the belt. These belts overlap. So right here is going to be the heavy part of the tire, and I can put a mark of my own on here, and that's certainly going to be close enough for what I need to do. Now I need to know which way we're going to mount the tire. The valve is going to be down there, so this is going to be up here. So now what I want to do, I want to get Gorilla Tape about 3/4 of the thickness and compress this tire together while it's soft. And the longer, this really didn't sit out here as long as I thought it should. This one might be a little difficult to get on, but if you leave it out in the sun long enough, it goes. So what I want to do now, and this is Gorilla Tape, not duct tape. Ordinary Gorilla Tape seems to work just fine. You don't need the whole Gorilla Tape. 3/4 is plenty. Now, when you put the original on, it looks like this would be simple, just wrap it around. No, you don't want to go down into the tire bead when you start. Then you want to bring this piece around, and again, all this information is redundantly on probably 20 or 25 other videos, and we've learned it the hard way. Now, the softer the tire is, the easier this is going to be to do, is to just compress the tire. In this case, the tire wasn't too bad. This piece hanging off we don't even care about right now. In fact, I'll leave it on. Now I need to do it in 4 pieces, 4 places. Now I have used Dawn. I'm not sure how much better this is than Dawn, if it is. But I always try to do this up on a table first. And so I only need to lubricate that side. So I take a little bit of this, the lubricant, whatever you want to call this. You really only have to do the top side if the truth were known. This will help the tire seat, that's for sure, once we get it up over the edge. Now, I already marked where this tire is going to go, so I just want to do the same thing here. Get enough of it on there, although, now if it's not hot enough, if the tire is not warm enough now, then the choice is I can put it down and use my body weight, which is significant, by the way. But sometime I can get away with doing it this way, so I thought I'd try. Get some of that off my hands. There, I have it marked where a heavy spot is there. The valve is here. So I'd like that to be right about there. So what happened here is the tape broke. And what I wanted to do is see if, this is just for my own knowledge, without using my own weight. See, significant weight. So even with the tape broken, it went on. So that's That's pretty simple to figure out. Now, I want to wipe some of that off just for cleanliness sake. Now, taking the tape off can be a little tricky because what you want to do, I've got to get a razor here. And usually your hands are good and soaking wet here. So. And boy, is it getting hot out here. I'm glad I got an early start. I want to pull this end of the tape up. Once I show this once, the rest will be pretty insignificantly. It's not a word. I'm not talking about. So I don't want part of the tape to stay down in the bead. So I can push the bead down, pull that piece out. Once I get that piece out, I'll do it from this side, I guess. Easy, always looking for the easiest way. And making sure that no tape stays down in the bead. Now I want to make sure that I've seated this and that I still have maintained that I'm aligned where I think the heavy spot is, which minimizes the balancing weight. Sometimes eliminates it. This usually does a pretty good job. Again, the wider rims are always easier to deal with in every way, just easier. So, we're ready to put the tire valve in and fill it with air. Now what I'll do is I'll put about 50 pounds of air in here so it really seats nice, and I'll check the bead. Now when I say check the bead, for any slow leaks, I want to check that this is seated correctly. Windex is real good at making bubbles. Soapy water is fine. When you get to this point, it's relative. Well, the whole job is relatively easy, time consuming. What I have to do is I have to make time this week to repair Vlad's fairing. He had a little bit of an accident, didn't get hurt bad. But, and I need some tires, and Vlad usually pays me in tires, so that's just what I need, more tires somehow. Anyway, we'll see how this all works out. That looks pretty good. But what we'll do is we'll have a cup of coffee. I'll check both sides, of course. Have a cup of coffee and do that same test over again. Put a little Windex down by the valve, because once this is, I know it's seated, it'll be time to balance it. And it looks like this just worked out perfectly. This was one of the, well again, wide rim, soft tire, goes together very easily. Narrow rim, middle of the winter, hard tire. And I always think the beauty is there's always some days that it's too hot to ride, and on the days it's too hot to ride, and today will be one of them, what'll happen is it just makes the tire mounting easier if you do for some tire changing. That really saves your bacon. Yeah, it looks like that's going to be fine. I'm going to clean that all up and we're ready to balance it. This is so close, I'm not going to put any balancing weights on it. And the tire that came off was a Michelin that I did the same way. It didn't need any balancing weights either. That's really close. So I don't know again about that dot, but I know, well, yeah, it's real close. Oh, it's great to get out of that 95-degree heat, but now it's just a question of reassembling, which on an R1 is probably one of the simplest things. And we have another, well, hopefully many thousands of miles of safe, enjoyable riding. Oh, it's a thing of beauty when it's all assembled like that. Wow. And a brand new tire, it's always great how the bike handles with a new tire. So with this job in the bank, I hope you've enjoyed the video, picked up some tips, give you some food for thought, and thanks for watching.